Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as this show is being recorded on Friday, December 26th, and we'll discuss the astrology over the weekend and into next week as we are in that no man's land period of time between Christmas and the New Year where it's easy to lose track of what day it is. But hopefully you can also enjoy some downtime as we close out a really big year. 2025 was intense for a purpose, which we don't always know in the moment, but we will certainly understand even more in hindsight. And so the Gregorian calendar can help us connect with the reset of a new calendar year, new beginnings, and a fresh start. But we know that the astrology continues on. The astrological new year is during the equinox, the spring or Aries equinox, when the sun enters Aries. So here we are closing out December, and we have few transiting aspects unfolding over the next few days. So in the heavens, in the cosmos, it's a little bit quieter. Mercury is moving through Sagittarius and will be making aspects over this weekend into next week, which I'll get to in just a moment. But I actually wanted to start by discussing the three planets currently in Capricorn traveling together. We have the Sun in Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn, and Mars in Capricorn. And they are all traveling in an ongoing conjunction until they arrive at the Venus star point on January 6th. And this particular Venus star point is happening at 16 degrees of Capricorn in your chart. It is a full Venus star point, which means this is where there are manifestations coming together in clear, strong ways that initially started for you 4 years ago in January 2022. That's when we had the last Venus star point in Capricorn. That was at 18 degrees when Venus was retrograde. And so she was a new Venus. She was setting intentions around what she wanted to create, manifest, and develop here in your life between 16 to 18 degrees of Capricorn. Now, 4 years later, here is the development of that intention, but through the Capricorn energies of determination, hard work, ongoing focus, a slow development of progress at times, because in Capricorn, things don't happen quickly, but they happen through that steady, ongoing pace of being focused on the bigger goal. Now, with this particular upcoming Venus star point on January 6th, we also have Mars. Mars is in the mix here, bringing in more energy, action, leadership, and masculine energy. And I was thinking about this is really quite beautiful, that this Venus star point is the feminine Venus, the masculine Mars, in a conjunction with the sun, bringing about developments that you've been working on that are ready to start as the new year begins. And even though it's not exact until January 6th, the energy is in effect now with these three planets all traveling together through the early degrees of Capricorn. This can help you keep your eyes on the prize, understand what really matters, what you're moving towards. Perhaps you're ready to claim some new goals or life manifestations that you've been working hard to create. And this could give you the strength and determination to set off on that path. So we're building towards that. So it's important to note, because whatever's coming up to your consciousness right now, whatever you're realizing is important to you. You want to create it in your life. You want to have it in your reality. This could be understanding that you're ready for a change in your career, in your work. That, of course, is Capricorn. Capricorn is not only your professional roles and what you do in the world, but it's your mastery. And so what have you realized you've been mastering over the past 4 years, again, between 16 to 18 degrees of Capricorn in your chart, that has not been easy? There are no shortcuts here. There are no things that you can just quickly develop or manifest in Capricorn. And another thing about this Capricorn influence is that it relates to the universal spiritual law of cause and effect, also known as the law of karma. So what you put out, you receive. What you create, you receive. What you develop and invest in is what comes back to you. This also relates to the karma across other lifetimes and timelines. Perhaps you've been clearing out karma and energies so that you no longer have to repeat it in other timelines or experiences. The law of cause and effect is associated with what unfolds over the long term and how you then develop inner resilience, strength, and self-reliance to get where you need to go without being distracted, deterred, or taken off course. It's the energy of focusing on what really matters for the long term and ensuring that your energy is invested in that direction. So this could be a time when you're getting a bigger scope of what matters to you, and as such, you're eliminating what doesn't. Capricorn has strong boundaries, strong personal integrity and self-respect. And when this Capricorn energy is invested in what matters for the long term, that's where you earn your power. You earn the fruits of your labor and what you've grown and mastered along the way. So that's where the Capricorn energy can feel very confident and strong in oneself. I will have a separate podcast episode for you discussing this Venus star point even more. But because we are moving in the direction of the Venus star point, the energy is active now. And because the Sun, Venus, and Mars, all in Capricorn, travel at different speeds, they are essentially pacing each other until January 6th. So again, stay very conscientious of what is drawing your attention here to these middle degrees of Capricorn in your chart, because you may have renewed energy that's even gaining traction and building now. This is a very grounding, ambitious energy and could even be quite welcomed after we've moved through a lot of water sign energy, since we had the ongoing water grand trine for about a month and a half, almost 2 months just recently. So this could feel like, okay, I'm getting my priorities in order. I understand what matters. This is what I'm going to build or do or head towards. These are my priorities as the year begins. Now, another strong energy here over the weekend and into next week is Mercury in Sagittarius. So Mercury in Sagittarius wants to see the bigger picture. It's a very optimistic energy. It has inspiration, the higher vision. It often makes moves based on what you believe. And yet you might forget, well, why do I believe this? Why is this important to me? Mercury in Sagittarius can be quite lofty and ungrounded and not always understand everything that's required to make something happen. And that's because Mercury is in his detriment in Sagittarius. Mercury is strong when he can focus on the particulars, the details, and the facts. But out here in Sagittarius, he can generalize, assume, go up into his ivory tower to sermonize. But this is also where Mercury in Sagittarius is so motivational and inspirational, because it asks us to look up, look at the bigger picture, look at where you're going and why. Why does that matter to you? Why do you want to create that? What's the bigger dream? And are you mentally in alignment with that bigger dream? So you could feel quite optimistic and hopeful around what's possible and what you want to move towards. Mercury is a sign of movement, whether that is mental or physical movement. And when this Mercury is open to other understandings, ideologies, and belief systems in Sagittarius, he's always learning. He's always willing to sit with something, even if it's uncomfortable, to consider, what does this mean? What does this offer me? Does this resonate? And this helps Mercury in Sagittarius not become too righteous, judgmental, or opinionated. Now, on December 27th, this Mercury in Sagittarius is going to trine Chiron retrograde in Aries at 22 degrees. And this trine to Chiron brings about new ways to approach what you need, new perspectives on the story, a new narrative coming to light. Because Mercury in Sagittarius is seeing something from a higher vantage point and delivering that message to Chiron retrograde in Aries, who might not see another perspective. He could be so invested in his own subjective individual experience that he's missing a higher vantage point. He's not seeing more of the story or the narrative. So this can be quite encouraging for anything you've been moving through that has felt painful, weakening, uncertain, vulnerable, insecure, anywhere you've been struggling maybe to take a risk, because this Chiron retrograde in Aries is learning how to be strong enough to follow what he wants, to be courageous and brave and to go for it. And Mercury in Sagittarius brings in the why not? You only live once. It's just an experience. It's just a part of a story. Just go for it. What is there to lose? So this could be, again, quite encouraging to anything you've been considering, hesitating on. This is fire sign energy that seeks movement. And this Chiron retrograde in Aries is going to station direct on January 2nd. And so there's a sense of Chiron is standing still, really considering what he's been through and wanting to not only heal from it, but powerfully change and shift because of it. And I feel like this Mercury trine is bringing about new options and openings that assist Chiron in moving forward. And this is the last planet that trines Chiron before he stations direct next Friday. So he's getting some downloads here to feel more invigorated and supported and not as limited or even fearful. Then after the trine to Chiron, Mercury in Sagittarius moves on and has a square to Saturn and Pisces at 26 degrees on December 29th, and then will also square Neptune in Pisces on January 1st. So the final few days of this year, Mercury in Sag is squaring both of these outer planets in Pisces. And this means there's greater confusion. We don't have all the facts. We can't see the full story. We're lost in the ethers of trying to understand what's going on, what's this about, what can I trust? And I feel that this square between Mercury and Sagittarius squaring both of these planets in Pisces is asking us to turn within and to trust what feels in resonance for you. That it's less about what the external world is trying to sell you or tell you to believe or convince you of something. In fact, it's often the people who are trying to sell you something, a story, a narrative, lies. They're the ones who have the most to lose because of what they're hiding. So they do a lot of projection. They make up a lot of false information so that you don't look at where the truth is. It's like, look over here, instead of trusting yourself and saying, something's really off. It's not normal to behave this way. It's not normal to invest so much malicious, diabolical energy towards someone or something. That's not normal. Normal people don't do that. Something's off. And why? Because of what they have to gain, what they have to lose, what they have to hide. And so Mercury in Sagittarius squaring Saturn and Neptune in Pisces is signaling that something doesn't line up here, even if it's not fully certain or clear what that could be. We had this square 3 times previously when the Sun, Venus, and Mars were all in Sagittarius squaring these 2 outer planets in Pisces. So we've actually been talking about this ongoing square for a while, but now Mercury comes into the picture and might try to make some grand declaration so that you look in the other direction, you don't trust yourself, you don't question things, and the truth can be hidden even longer. We only have one more month of Neptune in Pisces as Neptune re-enters Aries on January 26th and stays there until 2039. So the false prophets, the big liars, the big victims, the martyrs, and those who have relied upon spiritual bypassing are going to be working even harder in the 11th hour to cover up their tracks, maintain a mask, uphold delusion, deception, and confusion because of how they benefit from it. But we're moving into brand new evolutionary territory in 2026 that won't allow for any of that to continue on, simply because the human consciousness is elevating beyond those tricks and games. And so part of this year has been exposing the tactics, projections, lies, and deceptions of these energies. And sometimes you don't have to do anything but lean back. So on this note, I think it's important to bring up mental health, especially with this Mercury and Sagittarius squaring Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, because you could feel more exhausted, tired, and overwhelmed with this influence. So just a heads up that as we close out this calendar year, it will be important to tend to your mental health energy, whatever that looks like for you, whatever feels right for you. And there's actually some really fascinating science on how introverts and extroverts are different. So maybe you've heard this, but I think it's worth mentioning that there are different neurological pathways associated with how introverts and extroverts are different. Extroverts have a stronger dopamine activated neural pathway where they require higher levels of external stimulation, more going on in the environment, seeking more things that feel good in their everyday world and spaces. And it's a shorter neural pathway. So think about that. It's more about immediacy, ongoing interaction, ongoing stimulation, seeking that out more often and more regularly. Introverts, by contrast, have a longer, more complex neural pathway. That's known as the acetylcholine pathway that is longer and it runs through more areas of the brain. Acetylcholine is connected to the parasympathetic nervous system. So there's a need to rest and digest, as they say. There's a need to contemplate, consider, problem solve before taking action. That's why introverts need more time to be in their own energy and sit with something. And then by contrast, extroverts, with the dopamine being activated, runs off of the sympathetic nervous system, which is more of that fight or flight response. So see how there's two different activations here, two different energies that are stronger based on which neural pathway is activated. Then we also have the ambivert, which is the middle ground where you might feel like you're both an introvert and an extrovert. And if so, there would be more of a balance between these two systems where you alternate between the dopamine and the acetylcholine pathways, and maybe even feel more adaptable to an environment, situation, or whatever's going on around you. But all of this is fascinating when you apply it to your own natal Mercury sign, as well as these transiting Mercury aspects, because it could show you what you need to tend to and care for in yourself to maintain your mental health. This can also validate how you process information, the time it takes to process information, and even why you might need more time to yourself, more downtime, more quiet or silence. So yes, I hope this is validating, and then it also maybe gives you some more insights into understanding your own natal Mercury, including the aspects to your natal Mercury in your natal chart. And then before signing off for today, I wanted to share a few more things that have been developed that I think are related to Mercury inventions, and just share some technologies that are in the works, being developed, and or already operational. One is that researchers have built a robot with an onboard computer, sensors, and a motor smaller than a grain of salt. Smaller than a grain of salt. This is a robot that can be put into your blood. And they say that the intention of this AI robot, smaller than anything we can imagine, is so that it can deliver into the body targeted drug deployment. So it's meant to go right to where the drug is needed in the body. So this is certainly related to Uranus in Gemini developments in terms of experiments and technologies that can be implemented into our everyday lives. I don't know how far along this is in terms of research and actual usage. And then, of course, you would have a lot of ethical questions around this. So just a heads up about some things that are perhaps going to be used in hospitals or medical practices sooner than we think. So you probably heard about all the data centers that are being built around not only the US, but worldwide, and that these are data centers that are being developed for AI and many other technologies that require vast data storage. They're saying that these data centers could account for more than 10% of US power usage by 2030. So that is huge and certainly shows where priorities are, where infrastructure is being built. Also, how it's changing the landscape of the Earth's energy grid, the natural organic energy grid. And because the demand for data centers is growing, there are data centers being built in space. It's seen as a solution for where these data centers can be located. They have abundant solar power, and they can also be cooled more efficiently and more effectively. So there are a number of companies that are developing what they're calling orbital computing, but all of this is related to Pluto in Aquarius, off-planet technology solutions, future-focused engineering, new ways of using technology, and ingenious ways of approaching common problems, especially with the power grid. So this is a fascinating development. We will see where this goes. There's a lot of challenges for it, but there's a number of companies working on it. So I'm curious what else will then be put into space over the next number of years and decades. Looking ahead to 2026, overall, it's going to be a very different year than 2025 was. We're going to be moving into higher alignment with new energies, where the outer planets especially enter into fire and air signs where they will stay, and life is going to start to move much faster. So I hope you're able to enjoy whatever pace of life you are moving through right now, knowing that it will be changing in 2026. But we did get a sample of the potentials of that in 2025. For those of you who have asked, yes, the 2026 Soul Growth Astrology program is still on sale with coupon code NEW. I know that some of you are so busy and you want to make sure that you can get it for the sale price, and it is still on sale. I hope you can enjoy it here as we close out 2025, and I hope it helps you prepare for what's to come in your life and in your world in the new year. Wishing you a beautiful weekend, and I'll be back on Monday for another podcast episode. Take good care, and I'll see you back here soon.